Sweet. And then I usually just pray for us before we start, if that's okay with you.
Of course, dude.
Father God, you are so good. Thank you for the opportunity to glorify you today. We ask that you use this podcast as a way for us to speak your message through our mouths and to our audience, that other people may have a momentum shift in their lives. I pray for Raj and his father in their travels, and super grateful to have been connected to them and all the impact they're making in everyone's life. And we just pray that we use this constantly as an opportunity to glorify you and not just ourselves. So we do that through Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Mr. Dua, Mr. Raj Dua, how are you, sir?
Doing fantastic, man. Great to be
This
here.
has been a blessing and something I've been very excited for.
Likewise.
Just selfishly, for the ability to dive in with you and connect on a deeper level.
Yeah.
We had that one moment in Ibiza where we had that lunch together.
Yes, I remember.
And I was like, this guy is somebody that I want to do life with. I want to take a second to thank you for all that you're doing for us in business and being a mentor for us, and being someone that has come in a time that God put you in our lives at like the perfect timing, where we've hit a bottleneck. What got us here won't get us there.
Right. And
Raj fills that gap. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here.
So good to be here, man. No, it's such a pleasure.
Thanks. Let's go back a little bit. I don't like to go too crazy into like, oh, tell us a little bit about yourself, but give us like the origin story. I want to learn just selfishly about you, from London to America. Walk us through kind of like your abbreviated life story.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, growing up, London based, you can tell by my accent, really grew up in a very Christian home, and always had a fascination for technology, science, engineering, all that sort of thing. And really came into university being a great Christian, but I think kind of had my parents' faith up until then. And it really, it was during my college years, not when things were going well, when things started to go really, really not so well, that I started to realize, okay, I need to have my own faith here. And so coming into post-college, had some real tough times. I'll go through in a second. But through that, found my way actually accidentally coming to a conference over here in the US. It was a Grant Cardone conference, 10X. And say what you will, but the people that I met there were phenomenal at that conference. And just through that was like the accelerant to seeing for myself what could be in terms of a life over in the US, me transferring over. And that's what I did for the next 2 years. It was back in 2018. I would come over on a tourist visa to the States, start to kind of like, build some relationships here, and just back and forth, realize, wow, there's a mindset shift over here in the US that I want to be a part of. And so, through that, it sounded great. COVID hit. And I was about to take there's a flight home on March 15th, 2020 that I was meant to take home. And then they canceled it because British Airways did not want to fly back to the UK from the US because the Americans are all infected. Yeah. So pretty much just locked into the US at that point. It was that extra month that made me realize, okay, I have a real big future in some companies over here, was helping out some companies in operations. And it was through those next 5 years of moving then to San Diego, then moving down to Miami, and then just kind of growing through my stages over in the US that I found myself here now. Met my wife, 3 years ago down in Miami. We got married last year and have a baby on the way coming next month. And just being able to see what God has done over the past 5-6 years. I look back and I think I was very naive thinking that it's going to be, always a straight line up. Sure. And to see that I'm so much more of a grounded, grateful individual now because of all the bad that's happened, but also so much more grateful for the good. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't change any of it. You kind of sometimes can think a bit resentfully about some of the past and some regrets, but I wouldn't actually change any of it. And so grateful to be here today, and just excited to really be able to really fulfill my mission for what I believe God's called me to on this earth, is to really help entrepreneurs fulfill their God-given purpose to them. By just having amazing stewardship. And that really has been the theme of my life up till now, is just like God responding to good stewardship in my life. And really my mission is to really encourage that for others as well, and see them grow, because I just love seeing people just unlock what they have inside of them as well. That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing. Pleasure. Rewind. You mentioned that you grew up in a Christian household. Yes. But it felt like you're, and this is funny because your dad's off to the side here, so he's getting the inside scoop here.
So you felt like you were initially were influenced by our parents' beliefs, right? Because that's all we know and what we latch onto. But you said you had to essentially define your own set of beliefs. Like, what did that look like previously when you were latched onto, that version of Christianity as opposed to the hard, troubling times, and then where you landed after that?
Yeah, so I think it was from a standpoint of I was always the top student in school from a young age. A's were for me like it was super easy. I was always big fish in a small pond. I would get A's, A stars. There was a whole thing in the UK. You get A's and then you get A stars, like A pluses. And I got that all the way through school. And so I never had a point at which I was like, God, I need you. I need your help, because if I just put my hand to things, I could get it done. And it was very much like a me thing. And I actually developed a lot of pride my whole childhood because I was the man, we would go to these family parties, and then they would say, oh yeah, how's your child doing? How's your child doing? And then they'd be like, oh yeah, and how's Raj doing? And they'd be like, oh yeah, he got the top grade in the whole country. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And it was that development that I think it's so great to have amazing achievements. But I think when I didn't have the sight of, wow, that's because of what God's put in me. I'm so grateful for that. It was like, who needs God?
Yeah.
Fine, I'll go to church on Sunday. Fine, I'll sing songs. I'll play in the worship band. But like, you don't need God. You can just work hard. People just don't need people need to work hard. So it was actually in college that I actually, in my third year of college, it was a 3-year degree. I got a bachelor's in engineering. But in my third year of college, I actually was almost too involved in kind of running events, running parties. I was the president of the Indian Society, which is the biggest society on campus, a lot of Indians in that college. But I ran that whole show, and that meant that I probably had about 20% of the time I should have spent on my actual degree. So that year, which counted for half my degree's mark, or the grade, I basically semi-flunked that year. And that, even though my first and second year were pretty good, my third year dragged it way down. And I had a job offer from Morgan Stanley. I was about to start that following summer, and I had it all set. And that was the means to the end. That was all the grades up to this point. Morgan Stanley was the end goal, and we're set. We're rock and rolling. I missed out on that job offer by 1.4% because of that third year drop. And so we had a amazing graduation trip planned afterwards to celebrate. And that whole trip was just me writing documents every day to appeal my grade, to say, oh, because of this, it was unfair, the marking. And I can tell me, actually, I remember my dad as well. We were kind of like righteously angry. We're like, oh, but like, it's just 1% and they won't budge a little bit and no nothing. Or maybe Raj, you can redo the year. And there was some point I was like, okay, I need to go and pray because like, I don't know what to do. And that's probably the first time in my life that I've actually come to the end of myself. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I need like something to shift here. And so I was just like, God, like, show me what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry if I didn't steward my time at college correctly, but like, I really don't know what to do now. Because the embarrassments, the floor like breaking beneath me of, I don't have a job now. And what do I do? Do I repeat the year? That's not like crazy, but do I have to repeat the year? Do I do any other things? And I really kind of felt a peace around, hey, like I've got you. And I've never felt that sort of peace before, but just in that moment of prayer, I was like, okay, cool. God has got me. And it was then I then started to work with my dad for a little bit. And then I started to get this, like, just this burning desire of like, I think I can make my own business. I see my dad grow companies from a young age. And I was like, maybe I could do that same thing as well. And so it was through that sort of faith-forming journey of, Raj, all of your intellect and your hard work is actually not everything. Is that the whole like, hey, the horse is prepared for battle, but victory comes to the Lord. Like that victory comes to the Lord part, I had never had to see before. It was always through, I thought, my own preparation.
Yep.
And so that final piece of, okay, Raj, like here's the journey I'm going to take you on. And it's been an insane journey of just ups and downs. But it was through that journey of like starting to go into a field that I wasn't prepared for. I had no degree in business. I was like, I'm a new fish here. Was I think the start of that faith journey for me.
And I would argue that it was less important about God teaching you what to do, but more important about changing your heart posture around the entire thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it seems like that was the real evolution because it didn't really matter what you did. Once you fully submit and realize, okay, cool, I'm doing this to glorify you. I've kind of maxed out my ability to do things because of me and do it my way. Pretty much anything you do after that has an opportunity to be successful.
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's so good.
And I see so much like examples in the Bible of like God taking people who didn't have qualifications, didn't have the right stuff, by the world's definition and just takes them and puts them next to kings. And I would see those stories of, Daniel, of Joseph, of David. And I'm like, okay, there's something here there's something so cool about the people that God chooses. He will take you from one journey and move you to another, and he gets all the glory. And that's just for me, that's the most amazing part of the Christian journey and the faith journey with God is we can't lay it out for ourselves. Like no one in the Bible could have laid out what would happen to them in the future. It's like only God could do it.
That's so good, man. So fast forward a little bit, you start your own business, and then you mentioned that you went through some really challenging, dark times where there was a lot of resentment that pulled up, a lot of things that really tested your faith. What do those tactically look like? What are some key moments?
So it was right after COVID. I was, making good money at the time. I was a COO of a company that was helping businesses to scale up. And I was like, wow, cool. I've got my first sort of residual income and just, excess income I can now use. And a friend of mine had actually introduced me to an investment fund. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, he's running this investment fund. People have got good returns in the past. And I was thinking, okay, cool. I'll jump on in as well. So you put in my first 25,000, then my next 50,000, then my next 50,000. And suddenly, my friends join in, and then, my parents join in, and then my sister joins in. And suddenly it's like, cool. I'm helping so many people get access to this. I felt amazing. It was awesome. Such a real good feel good factor. 1 year passes. It's all fantastic. We get our money back. We're like, cool. We can trust this. Let's go again. We start to visit the fund. We start to see what they're building. And we're like, great. This is all fantastic. 2 years in, we start to get our first late payment on distributions. And by this time, we, as like a family group, we were all invested around $2 million. We were invested at this point. And I had never ever seen a late payment before. And suddenly we were told this like interestingly explanation of, oh, sorry guys, we can't actually do this distribution this month because the IRS has just introduced a new thing called a withholding tax. That means that we have to withhold taxes that you guys would be paying on your distributions. So we're going to withhold that for you now. And so that means that we have to pay you a later distribution.
In the amount of the full amount?
In the full amount.
that doesn't make any sense.
And for me, I'm like, okay, I know I'm not from the US, but like this makes zero sense. And I was like, if I had ChatGPT at that point, I would be like, does this make sense?
Yeah.
They would have said no. And it was at that point where I was like, I shared it with my dad and I was like, okay, interesting. So, we asked to have a call with them just to jump on and see, hey, like, what's the story? We come to find out that was the moment at which there was a small group of investors with that fund that had found out that it was actually a Ponzi scheme. And they had basically threatened to go public with it if they didn't get their money back. And so what happened was the investment fund, my friend at that point, said to his team, hey, we're going to pay out, rather than paying distributions to everyone, we're going to pay out this small group so we can keep things going. That's what actually came out in the end. So then, we're now in January 2023 and, we haven't got our distribution. We were out of that money and we were starting to ramp up the heat of like, hey, what's going on? Asking questions. Didn't get anything. And it was around April 2023, we kind of like looked at each other and we were like, it's gone. There's too much back and forth going crazy and just not actually giving us any clarity. And it was one of those things where I remember when we did our larger investment in 2022, we were thinking, all right, this is a big amount to put in, but I can't imagine a world in which we wouldn't get our money back because like there's so much trust here, there's a relationship, we know the families and everything. And I couldn't fathom it because I'd never seen that before, and that was a lot of my ethos for investing was, okay, hey, there's a relationship, there's trust here. But we were even shown fake financial statements as well during the whole time because we did due diligence. We asked for audited statements. We asked for a net worth statement. We got really, really well done pieces of paper, but they were all fake. And so my life for the past 2 years has been DOJ, SEC, FTC, FBI, just depositions, witness statements, all the stuff. It's getting pretty crazy. In fact, the guy in charge of it has actually been indicted already. He's about to be put in prison. But throughout that whole journey, I remember just kind of like two feelings. One, I've lost money. Two is I now have a whole bunch of friends and family who I kind of felt responsible for that have lost their money. And not only do I now feel responsible for my money to get back into the green and help, my wife and everything, I feel responsible for everyone else's funds as well. So it almost felt like I had lost $3 million because not only have I lost the 2 million, I now have to make good on, or I feel I have to make good on the other 1 million.
Sure.
So it was a time of feeling like every dollar I would make from that point felt like I don't own any of the money that I make right now. It's like, it's all going, it's all gone. And the mindset that happens at that point is almost kind of like a depression. You start to feel like, man, so much regrets, so much like, man, what if I had done things differently? And really, I remember seeing my dad. I was like, I remember talking to my mom. I was like, man, Mom, I feel like Dad is kind of lost his joy a little bit. And, he will say that was exactly what happened. It was like, that was their life savings they had put in. That was their retirement they had put in. And I was like, it was my fault. I felt like it was my fault. And just the forgiveness journey, I think, was the biggest thing I got from that was, people who know me growing up, like, I'm a hot-headed person. Like, if you wrong me, I'm going to come after you because, like, I feel very protective of myself, my family, my friends. And so for me, it was hard to suppress the want for revenge. And I had to really get to grips with what forgiveness is. And it really, there's a lovely quote where they talk about how forgiveness is releasing a prisoner from kind of like the jail they're in, but the prisoner is actually you. And so often we can think, oh, I'm not going to forgive because that person doesn't deserve it. And I still believe to this day that person doesn't deserve it. But two things. Number one, it's the right thing to do. But second, actually, every day I go on not forgiving him for what he did is me robbing myself of my future and my potential. And so I had to kind of draw a line in the sand of like, hey, even though we could go after this guy through 100,000 litigation and go crazy and take every asset in the future that he has, what is that going to rob us of the best years of our lives? And for me, that idea of forgiveness, I think is, for me, I'm all about kingdom economics of growing businesses. One of the key tenets is that, because you can have a founder with the best systems, best processes, best team, but if his mindset is stuck in resentment for something that went wrong, the amount of joy and years that can rob from you, which I experienced it for myself, is, you can't systemize your way out of that. It's some deep spiritual work you have to do to just shift away from that. And that for me, I think was, hopefully will be my biggest loss story, but it prepared me for what was going to happen the following couple of years, which was just amazing blessing pouring out from our businesses. I looked at money in a much different way then as well, but it came from, let me forgive because I know that there's so much more for me in the future. Yeah.
That's so good, dude. I would not, knowing you now, if we didn't get to the depth of that,
right,
I wouldn't be able to understand that was something you went through.
Right.
The way that you present yourself, it seems like it's not in a way where you've ignored that and you're like living like just you just brush that away. Right. Like you've gone through it. Yeah. You've done the work to truly get through it, forgive yourself, and forgive your everything that's going on here.
Yeah.
Now, when you start rebuilding after a hit like that, and you build in your business, a lot of people I've seen that have done that, they start to build from fear, but very tough to build a business from fear, given the fact that it still has a low likelihood of succeeding anyway. Entrepreneurship is risky inherently. Yes. Did you ever think you were going to lose it all again at any time? Like what's the, as you're going through, it doesn't seem as linear, right? Like there's not just that one cutoff piece where it's like, okay, this has changed. When you start rebuilding, what does that look like?
Yeah. So for me, I had to come back to the point of, okay, cool. What has God said? And Deuteronomy talks about how God has given us the ability to create wealth. And so I knew, I was like, hey, everyone has the ability to create wealth. I know I do as well. I've done things before that have created wealth. So what's in my hand right now? And so how we kind of structured it was we had our living expenses. We had money that we basically were committing to our friends and family saying, hey, we're going to pay you back this every single month. We also had just, I think just in general stuff we wanted to save up, investments and things. And so we basically had a number that we had to get to. And I think the number at that point was like $30K take home a month that we had to just have, of which we'd maybe live on like a small portion of that. Sure. But the main thing was actually paying people back. And so I had to start to reframe everything. And this is the big shift for me, was before I could actually go ahead and create wealth, I had to reframe where I am. Okay, I have $20K a month that's going out to people who maybe don't deserve it. Maybe they should also be experiencing the loss that I experienced. And I had to come through also forgive the people who were saying, oh, Raj, can you pay us back because like these guys failed? I'm like, well, who's paying me back?
Sure, yeah.
Why am I the savior? I had to firstly shift there and reframe, what? God has put an extra mantle on me. extra calling on me so that I can go and be a blessing to others that maybe don't deserve it. That's between them and God. But for me and God, I want to be like, hey, if I had any part in saying, hey, take a look at this investment, I want to make sure that I make good with you as well. So it was kind of like an integrity check for me. That was the first step. Second step was to really look at, and I'm a big fan of saying this phrase, is like, what's in my hand right now? I kind of looked across my network. I was like, hey, cool, who's doing cool projects and how can I add value to them? And I think this is a big thing of like building through fear versus building through love. Building through fear is very much like, how can I get 30K a month? Building through love is, how can I go ahead and deliver enough value so that someone giving me 30K a month is a great deal for them, that it's like, oh, no, it's a no-brainer. And I, of course, as you mentioned in the beginning, building through fear. I was trying to get just retainers and company, consulting agreements. And it was from a point of view of, I need this. So what can I do to get this? And you become the dancing seal if you build through fear. Where you'll start to be a chameleon and do whatever's necessary. And you start going outside of your genius zone. And so I did that for a good 3-4 months. And it is one of the most exhausting things I've ever seen. And what actually that season did for me, it informed a lot of my new process now, where I talk to founders about, hey, show me your time audit. And if I can see that 6 to 10 hours of your week is spent on stuff you should not be doing, let me tell you a story about how exhausting that is. Like, so I've lived that. And so I would be trying to basically dance for clients, do all the stuff that they wanted me to do, but I shouldn't be doing. And I lost my frame in that. So I actually got to, I think it was a good, 55K in take home pay every single month. But I was absolutely exhausted. And it hit me at a point where I was thinking, all right, something has to shift here. And I started to come back and write down, okay, who am I? What are my skill sets? What am I great at? And it was through that I started to present myself differently to people when I would talk to them. I remember being at a Friendsgiving gathering, and I was talking to this guy, and he was saying, hey, Raj, what do you do? So I told him, hey, I actually specifically help companies scale with great operations and great systems. And I'd never said that about myself before. I'd always said, oh yeah, I can do automations, I can do integrations, I can build you an app, I can do all these things. But I was very specific. And he said, oh, interesting. We have a tax business we love to scale, but my partners are all on the marketing side, but we love to maybe get some help on the operations side. Give me your details, we'll chat. Within a week, I had 25% of a business that would then go on over the next 12 to 15 months to do 27 million in revenue. And I could never have pitched myself or outbound, prospected for that. It just came from me being able to step out, go out, be in like great networking positions and be able to really succinctly and confidently share who I am from a place of, how can I help you? Versus, oh, do you have any spots open? Do you have, can I consult for you guys? With that guy who I mentioned to at the Friendsgiving, I helped him for free for a week and said, hey, here's what I would do if I were you guys. And he was like, Raj, can you just help us build this? And that was the step that really led to some insane revenue for us. And I'm a true believer that it was from the posture of our heart to pay back these people that we didn't have to pay back was what in my real opinion, was what led to those God connections that led to the amazing stuff over there.
That's so good.
It was awesome to see.
That's so good, man. That's in my opinion, how you exponentially grow in just life and business, where you start to raise your floor. And raising your floor doesn't always just come from identifying what you do. It also comes from like really being firm on what you don't do. Because that actually, that dials it down to what you do actually do, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good, man. Oh, now, how did it change, just reverting back to and closing the loop on this, the Ponzi scheme thing, how did it fundamentally change the way that you view risk, just as an investor, as an entrepreneur? Because the way that I see it is like, okay, if you know what you know now, you know how relatively quote unquote easier it is for you to reverse engineer your desired return on investment through entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So we don't need returns like that we don't need to chase return when we can engineer return. That being said, how's it changed from your previous thought of what assessing risk was and investing to now?
Yes. And it's interesting. Back at that point, I thought the only investments there were the stock market and real estate. And maybe crypto. But crypto is kind of like, back then was like the Wild West. Even now, a little bit of the Wild West as well. I thought those were only the three asset classes, and maybe other things as well, heavy metals and whatever. But what it came down to was I had missed one thing off the list, which was me. And I had never seen myself as an investment before. I saw myself as a great worker, a great hustler, but never as something to be invested in. And so it really shocked me that after the loss happened, I started to look at myself in a way of, okay, Raj, like, let's maybe change the viewpoint here. You went almost all in on an investment that you weren't in control of. It was someone else running it who has different standards to you. And actually, if we look at it factually, you were trying to look for an easy way out of, oh, because I'm now getting these nice passive returns from this fund, I don't have to grind as hard. I don't have to go as hard and go for big enough opportunities. I can just coast. And I do think it breeded a sense of comfortability with me, where I was thinking, all right, I'm totally fine. I don't need to go ahead and really build what I need to be building. So now I view risk very differently. I view it as I need to be spending at least 30% of my take-home pay needs to be spent on reinvesting into myself, whether that's health, mindset, experiences, because I'm a big fan, but experiences can really set you into a whole new mindset level. I then want to be focused on, straight after that, another 20 to 25% in things that I can control. And when I say I can control, it's like, I'm not sending money to someone else in their custody accounts. Things like S&P, index funds that are like not as risky as like investing in a single stock, but like in general, they're there and I can pull out anytime. Mm-hmm. Then I want to be going into like, hey, what businesses can I actually be putting money into? Whether it's my own businesses, part of that first 30%, or businesses where I can actually lead and run the charge, but not be the sole owner. So like a lot of the clients that I have right now, I'll invest into because I'm like, hey, I believe where you guys are going. And also I'm around and I'm part of the business to be able to kind of like guide and make sure we're going to get there as well.
Yep.
And the last bit of that, maybe 10% will be for things like speculative investments, high risk angel investments, or, Bitcoin or whatever. But that portfolio management, I had never really seen before, because I always just saw it as we do work, we make salary, and we put it into passive investments. And I think, plenty of people have that mindset and it works for some. But I think being able to step back and see, okay, are we detracting from investing back into the best investment in our 20s and 30s and 40s is always going to be ourselves? Are we trying to cheapen the investment in ourselves because we rely more on a house?
Yep.
Crypto coin, like that for me was a big shift in actually where I put my money to shows my heart is as well.
I think it's part of the conditioning of the lie we've been sold for a long time.
Yes.
Make money, put it into things that produce passive income, and retire in your 20s.
Right.
Sounds great, but like when I really come down to like, what do I want with my life? I don't want to retire in my 20s. I'm like, there's so much value to be deposited, so much cool things to be built, so much more lives to impact that I have this saying, like, I almost want to make active income cool again. That doesn't mean like work harder, but that means just like, how do I feed more people? How, like, put more food on people's plates? How do I hire more? How do I create more intellectual property to bring into the environment? Oh, it's just that this myth that we've been sold that this is it. Put money into real estate or passive investments. That's it.
Absolutely. And God says it best. He says, one of the first things he says to us in the Bible is like, go forth, multiply, be fruitful, enlarge your tent. And he never says, go get a pension, like there's no pensions in the Bible, So I think what the Industrial Revolution did to us as a society, I think actually is extremely damaging, that people are in a sense of stability in their job. Like no one in the Bible had jobs. Mm-hmm. Every character in the Bible was a incredible adventurer, entrepreneur, had businesses, had trades. That is anointed kingdom economics right there, where they're like going out and actually taking dominion over the environment. And what I do see is that the people I've seen who have shifted away from a 9-to-5 mindset and shifted into, wow, I can actually go ahead and create something. God's all about creation, and I think that's where people get a feeling that, oh wait, why would I want to retire at 65? This is my God-given calling. I'm going to go past 65. And often the 60s is where I think people start to have a renewed mindset of, I can't just stop now. I want to keep going. I have 30, 40 more years ahead of me. So I have a funny feeling we'll see people start to look at retirement very differently. And when you sit in that seat, you start to really identify that there is a true ROI in your health, investing in how you show up. Like if I'm super invested in, I could calculate this at this point of like invested in my sleep, optimizing my health, my body, all the food that I intake, that allows me to show up to a podcast like this that then yields massive fruit in all different lens. So 100%. I think the first thing is adopting the ability to create, adopting the fact that we should all be creating. There's one thing I heard from Billy Carson, who have you ever heard of Billy Carson? Yes,
dude,
absolutely.
He could go all the way from like who built the pyramids to like deep biblical stuff. So he's just super well educated, well spoken on a lot of this stuff, whether, you know, you believe in conspiracy theories or not, totally besides the point. But he talked about, you know, I don't claim to be an expert in this by any means, but you know, if we believe that there's an image of God in us, right? There's a piece of God inside of us, and God is the creator. That means we can create. It's not selfish to say that I can create. So I can actually just sit here and say, I'm going to create this. And part of my God-given ability allows me to create this. I feel like not enough of us are willing to be bold enough to say that. We think that it goes against, we think it's almost blasphemous.
It is, right? Yes, because, you know, we get told as kids, you know, oh, hey, stop looking at the clouds, listen to me in class. Oh, stop daydreaming, you know, listen to me, I do this work. And we have our niece here from London. She's 2.5 years old, and she's looking at me. She's like, oh, Raj, look at the lovely planes in the sky. And I'm like, there's no planes in the sky. And she's imagining all these planes in the sky going around. That is, in my mind, what I think we're missing, is the ability to be imaginative, creative. And you'll find people say, oh yeah, I'm not creative. We are all creative beings. It's just a matter of, have you been depriving yourself of the ability to be creative as well? Like I'm a big fan of even entrepreneurs who, you know, just are grinding. I'm like, hey, take 5-10 hours a week out, go walk in nature, or go draw, go play an instrument, go learn an instrument, because it's those creative moments will actually start to make you realize, you know what, there's a side of my brain that's been kind of asleep for the past 30, 40 years that has now come alive again. And that for me is really where real creation happens, is through that brain. So
good, man. There are a few higher ROI activities for me than walking for an hour or two with my phone, without my phone. It's just
absolutely
why. And it's tough because in the beginning you're like, oh, I could just go work. Like that's, I should be working, because anytime I'm not working is time I should have been spent working.
Absolutely.
But that is work.
Yes.
That is the opportunity to come back with a whole new fresh set of ideas and be well rested. So back into the weeds a little bit on the founder side for what you do. Sure. And more than enough permission for you to use me and Landon as an example. Sure. We're very open on a lot of this stuff. So one question that I had was, what are founders most, in your opinion, reluctant to admit about themselves? There's this unlock that happens from what I've seen with the work that we do, of just this one little thing that sometimes we're not willing to admit that we need to get over. What would you say an average entrepreneur is not willing to admit about themselves?
I think the average founder, and let's assume this founder has maybe 5 employees.
Sure.
Let's say they're about, let's say they're doing maybe 100K a month in revenue. The average founder at that stage, which is the mainly people that I start to work with, will never admit that they hired the wrong people, because, and as a result, they are getting frustrated at the standards that they don't have as a team. And as a result, the founder starts to do everything in the business because he's not able to, and doesn't feel the confidence to say, hey, here's the standards. I have faith in you, team, to go do it. Go do it. That for me is the thing that they're so reluctant to admit, until I'll come in and I'll say, hey, here's the audit of your team. You need to let go of these people right now. And I find there's such a resistance there, because often these founders hire these 5 people, but they take them on as their responsibility. Like they're a father and a son. They brought them in saying, hey, I will help you make money for your family. And that becomes almost like they put that on a pedestal of, I have to make this work for my team. But sometimes they don't ask themselves the question, is this the right team for my business and my calling to grow this? And suddenly we lose sight of the stewardship of, we were meant to steward this business for the customers, and the team is a lovely added bonus. But if it's not the right team, it's never going to be great for anyone. So that has been the biggest shift I find. And I've had founders get angry with me on the call sometimes of like, no, Raj, this girl, Janice, she's been with me since 7 years ago. She's been showing up so well. I'm like, but the numbers show different. And to detach the emotions from the data is often one of the hardest things for them to do, because they often see that, especially a small team like that, it's like family.
Yep.
So that for me, when people can get over that and move into a place where actually sometimes it's the fairest thing to let go of an employee that's not meant to be on the team, and step into, here's my new floor for who I want to be hiring. Here's my new standards of what's going to be there. And hey, existing team, here's what our standards are. Sound good? They say no worries. I want to release you into what your calling is, but it's actually unfair on you and for me to keep you in the business longer.
Yeah, it's so good, man. Now, where does that play into the fact that let's say we assume we all hired A players and we have the right team? How do we ensure we still give people enough leash to mess up? Because that's going to happen. right? So like something that I've been having to evolve through is like the unlocks that you're looking for in business and your ability to scale is how much you're willing to endure your team screwing up without you there. Right. That's something that I've just been trying to really grasp onto, but letting go and allowing them the opportunity to go screw it up so that they can learn has been huge for me. But like, how do we have both end?
Yes. So for me, it comes down to really effective delegation. Like we've been all told in the MBA books of like, business economics 101, that when you delegate to employee, your standard will dip for a little bit and then it will get much better. I actually think that's BS. I think that with the right delegation and correct delegation, it should never go down because you would have brought the team member underneath you in the right way, transferred the skills in the right way, but made it so that they're only really taking on the role once they've been taught phenomenally, and then the standards can really increase because they can add more headspace to it as well. So I came into a business a couple months ago, great business, credit repair, and they did not have a SOP for how to teach their employees what to do. They just would do a quick little Zoom call, send them a Loom video and say, hey, here's what I want you to do. But it would be very much like, here's this destination, here's the start, figure out your way to get there.
Sure.
And it's through being a lot more specific about what you want your employees to do, but also showing them the standards of what the outcome should be and making that really clear so that an A player will be like thinking, great, I know where the end needs to be excellent. Awesome. We're going to go get there. Whereas I do find sometimes people can be in the B player seat, C player seat. Even the best SOPs and training guides will result in frustration because they don't take it on and they don't take the standards on as you've taken them on. And especially with founders who have extremely high standards, like I know you do, and delegating to a team member that doesn't have those same standards, well, no matter what you say to them, no matter how you train them, you'll always have that gap of like, oh, I thought it was going to be like this, but they just see it excellently as this as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you find also some people's reluctance to pay the market rate for an A player as well?
Yeah, I think the whole online space and just entrepreneur industry in general, I think got hit really big when virtual assistants became a thing. We suddenly got to thinking, oh wait, why do I need to pay for US based talent if I can just get the same standard of work from a VA? And that is true in many settings. If you look at the complexity of skills from levels 1 to 4, levels 1 to 2, you can absolutely delegate to virtual assistants. I think I have a ton of VAs that are working under me in companies in South America and Philippines, phenomenal workers. When you get to complexity levels 3 and 4, it's at that point where you have to make the decision of, would I rather pay 2 B players $4K a month each to do these jobs? Or can I pay 1 A player $7K to do all these super excellently and give maybe a bonus at the end of the year for doing a really great job? Mm-hmm. That is the shift that I think people often think, oh, cool, I can hire 1 B player to do this. It's cheaper. They then end up having to hire another B player to do the same kind of like almost like supervisionary work. You're now double paying. So I always find A players will actually cost you less because their output is 10 times more than a B player.
Yep.
But this is the crazy part. Founders often don't understand who an A player looks like because they've only been surrounded by B players their whole life. And it's kind of one of those like eureka moments of, oh, I didn't know it could be this good. Kind of like dating around in Miami and you come to a lovely place and you see an amazing girl and you're like, wow, I didn't know that kind of lady existed. For me, my wife was one of the examples. I was like, wow, I can have these kind of conversations with a lady she actually was in Miami. She was up in West Palm Beach, but it was through that meeting her, it kind of broke my reality of, oh, this is an 8-hour conversation. Our first date was 8 hours long. And I was like, okay, this is my new floor of what dating means. And suddenly my past dating for 3 years before that was just, I was like, man, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
So, well, a great use of time to now see the difference, but it's the same thing with A players and B players. You often don't know what you can have until you've experienced the taste of an A player and you see, wow, the money I'm paying them this month I'm seeing it back 5-10-fold so quickly. It's a joy to pay them. So I often ask founders, hey, who are you paying now where each time you pay them is a bit of a resentment coming out of like, wait, why is he getting this much? If that's the case, that's a pretty good sign that they're not cut out for that role. Or maybe they're just not got good direction, but employees in my mind are one of the highest return things you can have in your business. Absolutely.
Yeah. That goes back to talking about the ROI. Like a lot of people are just taking this money and going to deploy it into any other investment that's not their business. Like if I can deploy it into a person, I get a 10x return.
Yes.
Let me keep doing that until I find until I can't do it 100%. Anymore. Right. Give us a very specific example as to if a founder is looking to raise their floor. How can I identify in this situation if I have a B player team or an A player team? Like, what does that look like? What are the warning signs and signals?
Great question. I just did a VIP day on this last week. So coming to a company, let's say I have a coaching business and I have a sales team for that coaching business. I have a team of setters and I have a team of client success managers, 3 teams. Let's say on my sales team that if I'm COO in the business, let's say that my top closer is closing about $200K a month for us right now, but he doesn't fill up his reports every day. He doesn't clean up his CRM. He doesn't jump on the calls of the team because he's closing so much. He doesn't need to be there. And he doesn't develop himself. He doesn't like selling on new offers because he wants to stick with what he's currently doing. And pretty much the theme I find with B players, and with this guy especially, was that there was a resistance to having full autonomy and resistance to having actually feeling like the business was his own. And what I find with B players, they don't see the business as their own, they see it as a job. They need hand-holding so often in the business, and they don't have the same standards as you. And so output tends to be just not what you're expecting as a CEO. Those are probably my top 3 signs of a B player. The top 3 signs of A players will be they onboard themselves when they start with you in the business. So if you're onboarding a new employee, if you bring on a new employee into the business and in the first week you give them some materials, if they're coming to you saying, hey Raj, I would love to get maybe some more clarity on this area. Can you do maybe a training for me on this as well? That is probably one of the top signs I see almost every time I hire an A player. They're asking for extra things to be onboarded into. They want more clarity on certain areas. B players are like, hey, give me all you got, I'll digest it. But like they're relying on you to onboard them correctly. A players will also come in and basically say, hey, let me run this as I want to, but I want to really add more like my own spin, my own ownership, my own accountability to this. And also A players make their bed. They do all the hygiene stuff. They do all the small things, not just the big things. Like I'm a big fan of firing closers who just close a lot of cash, but they don't do everything else. They don't do all the basics. They don't do all the small things right, because I'm a big fan. Kingdom teams do the small things correctly so they can do the big things correctly as well. They don't just say, oh yeah, but I'm closing money for you. Why would I need to do all this small stuff? Well, you see it all the time.
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
That's
right?
it.
Like even to the point in college, I'll never forget, we were in the workout room in college baseball and I didn't rack the weight the way that it should have been racked.
Right.
And our coach flipped out. And it's such a simple little thing, but how you do one thing is how you do everything. Those minute attention to details are the difference between winning championships and not.
So
and
true. That's
why I like business, because you're able to create a scoreboard like sports almost. And
absolutely.
I had a observation that you had mentioned. Slipped my mind. I'm sorry, but yeah, really well said, man, on the A player thing. That's it's almost. Oh, that's what I was thinking. There's almost like this delicate force that's created by A players. It's like this empathetic level of like force where they're gonna drive their way into something. Sometimes they could be a true force. Like myself, when I go into things, if I was ever a part of a team where I wasn't like the full team leader, I would be sometimes the loudest guy in the room, but I would make sure people know, like, I need training. I need more stuff. Here's what I think I need, and I'll do all the things right. But I think there's really good A players that can be, there's an empathetic level of force that they bring where they're not too much of an annoying thorn in your side, but they know what they need to succeed, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it.
So true. There's also another side of it, which is I've had founders that I work with who solely want to hire from the Philippines and have VAs because they like the power dynamic. They love to feel like they're the boss, because Filipinos have a great habit of saying to their boss every day, hey boss, hey sir. It's very much a big respect dynamic. An A player wants to be treated as an equal. And so I've had founders where they'll hire then an A player that I've brought to them, and they just won't get on with them because they're expecting them to kind of submit.
Sure.
And I'm a big fan of CEOs who can go ahead and actually humble themselves and realize, you know what, I need to hire people who are better than me in certain areas and respect that they are, rather than, oh no, I need to be the boss. My ego needs to be filled. You need to pay your respects to me. And often that comes out as people who aren't as good as them, because there's like that subservient dynamic as well. So a lot of insecurity in founders will lead to not scaling as fast or as far as they could go, just because there's the ego there of, I don't want to admit that I'm great in this one area, but these other people are as good or if not better than me in these other areas.
But like, what a blessing that is, right? And that's why the
Right.
personal development side is so important in entrepreneurship. Yeah, but
So
that seeing that is the difference between having a 7-figure company and 8, 9,
That's
10-figure
it.
company.
That's exactly right. I've never seen a founder go past maybe mid 6 figures a year. Oh no, mid 6 figures a month. Sorry, with that mindset.
Yep.
Just doesn't happen.
Or sustainably, at least. Right?
You're right.
One thing I heard Jeff Bezos said that really stuck with me is like, I don't hire people for me to tell them what to do. I hire them for them to tell me what to do.
Absolutely.
Like in certain areas where I'm not the subject matter expert, you can be my boss in that area. It doesn't have to be this like power dynamic, but like, tell me what you need. Give me the opportunity to facilitate for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So good, man. How's that evolved for your world where the operations side of things seems like there's a massive dichotomy between the operation side of the world and then the sales side, right? There's a lot more rah on the sales side. You can almost feel the bravado of an A player come out a little bit more on the sales side.
Yes.
But like, how has that been for you and your evolution and growth as a founder while being more operations focused?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what being able to kind of add more stuff to the sales side as well.
But like, let's say for example, I'm thinking through like, let's say you're in a business partnership, right? There's likely on the operations side less like push, like I want to understand like your dynamic as a leader on the operations side as opposed to, let's say you had a business partner that was more sales focused.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually in the tax business we helped with a couple of years ago, we had 2 partners who were on marketing. One partner was on sales and I was on operations. And so for me, that's why some of the best COOs that I know are the best at telling the salespeople no and telling the marketing guys no as well. And that comes from a security and knowing what you're doing well, because often operations guys get bullied because the sales guys are so rah-rah that the operations are like, oh yeah, sure, we can do that. It's like very much like a meek little mouse.
That was the root of my question. Yep.
Yeah. And so being able to stand on your own 2 feet, I think is the difference between someone being like a director of operations or an operations manager and being a COO. Like a COO needs to be able to tell you like, hey, that's not how we do things. We're doing it differently. Like, let me have a meeting with you to actually reset. They need to be almost be able to dip into some of the personality types of the sales side, of the marketing side. That itself is such an art to learn. And that for me came through being walked over by salespeople for many years. And I was like, why do these guys always get what they want? And I had to kind of rise up in myself. People who know me from childhood, I was a very quiet kid. But now for me, like I can come out as the lion on calls and be like, hey, like this is what we need, because I know I've done my homework. I know the data. And that comes actually down to it as well. If I can come to a sales meeting with data on why their approach is not working, I remove all rah-rah and emotion from it. And so being an operations head and knowing your data and knowing your numbers, you come in with such an authority into the room just for yourself knowing, and also people see, oh wow, I can't really argue against that.
Yeah.
Because I see that my close rate's in the toilet.
Sure. That's why I'm really excited to get to work with you and also being like that other member of our leadership team to really, stamp the ground into some things, because I could see that show up in myself a lot as well sometimes, where sometimes I'm fighting because I'm more of the chief revenue side of things.
Yes.
Really. And a lot of times you can continue to trick yourself that you're the only reason the business runs, because the only way the business makes money is if you're involved in it, right?
I'm the revenue daddy.
There's so many other things that are involved with the business that I have no core competency at, that I'm so blessed to have people like yourself, like Landon, like our team. So it's just a blessing to have you.
It is. And I think, dude, it's so cool. And just even seeing you and Landon, like I see founders who are like, Raj, please save us and save our team. I can't save teams because that's itself is like a full-time job.
Sure.
For me, I find where there's teams that have great character across the board and are just missing some actual like systems in place to get going. I found that I did a podcast with my wife about this, about a thing called a savior complex, where often we can look at teams, even people in our world, and think, oh, they have so much potential, but they're so far away, but I can save them. And that has been some of the biggest time wasting seasons in my life, where I try to save companies, founders who are just on like a 1 out of 10, but I think they could get to 10 out of 10, maybe in the next 10 years. I was like, okay, am I going to take that journey? And so a big part of my why this year is focusing on businesses who are already a great 7 or 8 out of 10. They just need that small gap to really have that exponential growth as well. And for me, just seeing you and Landon, how you guys carry yourselves, the character you both built together, it's just, you guys are the 8 out of 10s that are just so close. It's just small tweaks here and there That's where I get the most satisfaction
Yep.
from things, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like you're just constantly raising your floor, right? There's
Absolutely.
this raising of your floor of identifying what you do and what you don't do, and then there's raising a floor of like who you serve and who you don't serve, and that constantly evolves as you continue to grow in business. Right?
So true, so true.
That's great, man. Let's talk about when systems may go too far. So you're a systems guy. From what I've observed about you, you systemize a lot of stuff, like your travel. All this stuff is like kind of on automation. AI probably is a huge factor in that as well.
Absolutely.
Where in your life have you like over systematized at times where you might have had to kind of swing back?
Yes. So I think I saw an Instagram reel maybe 3 years ago that talked about how this company has no meetings. They're like, hey, we don't do meetings. We just do reports, and we do Slack end of day reports. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Let's do that. We've put that into place. We had a team of 25 people that were basically having about 3 to 4 meetings a day just in the company in general. We just made a move to say no more meetings because that's time wasted. That could be done doing other things. And if you look on paper, it was extremely systemized. Like every meeting was replaced with, hey, by this time, I need your report. By this time, I need your numbers. By this time, I need you to have told me that you've done the sales rehearsal or script or done a one-to-one with someone on like a huddle to do like let's say a sales practice.
Sure.
We tried that out for about 3 weeks, and we came back and we actually had 2 of our sales guys quit because they missed the community. We had 2 of our operations guys say, hey, like this is just not working for us. They actually quit as well. And I was like, wait, guys, like we were just testing this, but they just felt like, this is, I haven't got any connection with anyone. And I think systems are great for buying back the time of a founder in the initial stages. But I think systems can be defined as we have structure, but we also have the human component of empathy, connection, and creativity as well. Like I can't tell you the number of calls I've been on where, because you've had a great agenda for the call, part of the call agenda is ideation. And to have 5 A players in a room brainstorming ideas of what we could be doing for our next offer for just 25 minutes, I wouldn't trade that time for the world. I wouldn't think, I could be elsewhere. I could be doing my nature walk or whatever. That was a phenomenal time. And so I do find changing the definition of systemizing, I think is the key to not over systemizing in the bad way. Systems really is structure plus human connection plus empathy plus creativity. If you mix all those together, that's beautiful in itself.
Yeah, systems allow humans to be better versions of humans.
Yes.
It's not to completely replace humans. That's where I think, the low-level task workers, you might be in jeopardy of your job being replaced over the next couple of years with AI. But if you're a company integrating AI, you're not doing it to just completely remove humans. You're doing it to allow humans to have a better experience. That's it. To allow the impact of what humans can do in the business really shine.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That's super good, man. Just to keep this on pace and not go, we could go 3 hours with this thing. You talk about how the experiential wealth side of things is such a big part of your life. You're somebody that I admire a lot that has been able to, and I don't want to speak for you, but this is my observation. You've been able to travel luxuriously and spontaneously and have such an awesome time around it while still going through a scaling phase of your business.
Yes.
I've had this challenge where I've been able to do the same in terms of travel and luxuriously, spontaneously, all this stuff. Very tough to scale while going through that as well. Right. But would love to hear your thoughts around, your travel lifestyle, how important that is to you, and then also how you've been able to keep up with growing your business while doing it.
Great question. And I think for every entrepreneur listening to this, travel itself, if you do it correctly, is probably one of the highest ROI things you can do. Mm-hmm. Just because to be able to see other cultures, just meet other people, some of the best connections I've had in business have been through meeting billionaires at the bar and like just going to these amazing resorts. And I do see that there is a value to that. For me and my wife have always been massive into travel. We love the experience. We love just new cultures. But even for me, it got to a point, I think around 2022, when we were building that new business from scratch, I was like, wow, okay, my trips are kind of not trips. And I've had to come through my own journey of trying to really be present where I am. And it's funny, our last big trip, which we did back in August, we did the Ritz yacht for a good 7 days. We were in Amalfi Coast, we were in Lake Como. We actually flew out the whole family to come join us in Italy for that. I made a commitment. I was like, I need to be off during this time. And so I was like, okay, cool. Let me start there. If I need to be off during this time, I want to be present with my family, present with my niece, present with my wife on the cruise. If that's to be true, what needs to be true between June, which is when I was trying to plan this trip, or April, to get to that sort of stage? And so it really comes down to empowering great leaders. So when I was away, So when I was away, I actually had my COO actually send me a report every single day of what happened, any bottlenecks, any stucks. I would simply have a hour period every morning. And because I was in Europe, I could just do this before everyone wakes up in the US. I could just type back to him, hey, cool. Here's what I would do if I were you on this. This sounds great. You have my approval on this as well. Just literally, maybe it was 20 minutes a day. It was just kind of, I had my chief of staff, COO, just telling me, hey, here's what we need from you. And he said, hey, and I told him, hey, if you have a need for me to jump on a call with you, I have this 1 hour blocked off every day, just in case. He actually never used that facility that whole time. And so I think putting in that sort of system was phenomenal, because I found myself, had some great trips the past few years. I found myself trying to be everywhere to everyone. And I would be, with my wife for dinner, but always looking at the clock of, oh gosh, we got to leave because I have a call with Miami in 2 hours. So we can't really enjoy dinner here. But then after my Miami call, we can then have nice, a drink at the bar, but then I got to go for another call. And I was like, okay, I'm not giving my best self to anyone, and I've worked with my mindset coach a lot of this to look at, am I giving my wife the best part of my day or the worst part? And I had to start to shift. You've probably seen that demonstration of the big jar. You put in the sand and then the ping pong balls and the gravel. Like, depending on what order you put it in, stuff can fit in versus stuff can't fit in. And so I had to put in the big stuff. I had to put in time with my family, checking with my dad, checking with my family, checking in with Victoria, my wife, put those important things first on the day. And it applies the same for vacation, where I need to be conscious that I need to be present where I'm present, so that I can then be really in the work where I'm in the work. Yep. And so I think for me, when I'm in business, I'm intense down. But when I'm with the family dinner, I try as much as possible. Phones down, phones off. The same applies to trips as well. So it was from that reframing of what is travel for me. I've learned to firstly have great people to be in my corner, to be able to carry me during that time. But also still be available when I need to, just in case stuff goes. Because with business, anything can happen. And I want to make sure that I'm not the bottleneck for that. Even though, hey, I should be able to take some time off. In business, sometimes we just can't, but we have to be able to have the rhythm of it. And I don't think you should ever have kind of a work-life vacation balance. It's just rhythms, and different seasons call for different rhythms, and that's totally fine. But we've been very grateful for the past season that we can travel, and we will be able to travel now with our baby coming in as well in January. But through having an amazing team to carry us through that's been probably the biggest shift. And then just making sure that they feel like I'm still with them. I'm not abandoning them, but I trust in their leadership to go ahead and carry me.
I just love the smile that came on when you started talking about your baby.
Yeah.
That little subtle light that sparked a little bit there. What changes when the baby comes, if anything?
I think for me, I've heard from many people that as soon as you have your first baby, you actually have a physical shift in your brain. Like, the centers of the brain get smaller and larger, and you start to be, I think, way more focused on longevity, on legacy. And for me, what changes, I think, is really a lot of my why. I think what's already changed in the past 3-4 months has been my focus. I've always been someone who says, oh, I can build 6-7 different businesses myself, and because I have high capacity. I suddenly realized that that's leading to me not being able to give my best to all of them. And I know that it's actually down to me to be able to steward my time well. And so I was thinking back in August, I was like, okay, my daughter's coming in January. I can't really go ahead and actually be everything to everyone. So let me go ahead and actually break off some of these businesses. So actually I shut down 2-3 businesses that they were doing good, but I knew that if I could take all the time from those 3, put them to the ones that I really love and that align with my calling, that is me focusing, ready for when baby comes, I have my time stewarded well. So it's definitely already made me shift for sure into what's sustainable. I'm much more now a fan of running businesses sustainably versus just scaling. Like, and I'm on a big mission to change the definition of scaling, where it's not, let me get you from zero to 100K a month in 3 months. That's not scaling. That's just chaos. I want to see, hey, how can we scale for the long term to enterprise value. And that itself is a longer term game.
If that's one thing that I really want to land with younger entrepreneurs that are listening to this, or any keynotes that I do, I'm always very clear about this distinction. There's growth and then there's scale.
Yes.
A lot of people confuse scale with growth by just like, oh, dude, we're just scaling revenue.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you're growing the revenue. You're growing the front end of the company, but scalability creates sustainability. I'd much rather have sustainability than speed. Now, what we've been able to do, thankfully, is sustainable speed, which has been the beautiful opportunity where if you invest in scale in anticipation of growth, that allows you to grow exponentially faster because you can run without looking over your shoulder, wondering if anything's going to ultimately break. And that's why, we're at a point right now where we had to actually pull back and say, okay, we can't keep growing because we've reached our ability to scale anymore. We need to build some more scale into this through human systems, the right people, and then we're able to grow I would say at this point, we can probably grow another 3 to 5x pretty sustainably in this new operating system that we're going to build.
100%. Right? 100%. I think for me, growth is, let me grow 10% a month for the year. And suddenly we're now at amazing, like nice growth rates. Scaling for me is a multiplication factor. It is, I can go, if I put the right tools in for a year and be okay with revenue staying like this, but I'm putting in the right work, then a 10x exponential move is inevitable. So I personally don't see scaling as like a bell curve or like a straight exponential curve. I see it really as like steady, 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 and then hockey sticks.
Yep, it's a J.
It's always hockey stick moments that really also create the amazing story for an acquisition, an exit. No investor wants to buy a steadily growing business. I'm so sorry. Like it used to be that. The best investors, the best people who want to buy businesses want to buy businesses that have a hockey stick moment, a story of like, wow, this is what's possible with that business as we grow. So for me, I'm big on scaling not being like hey, it's a time banded thing. For me, scaling is more with all the right inputs we can put into a company that we know will create amazing value. It's inevitable that we'll see the 10x moments that we want to get to. The key thing is being patient enough to get there and make sure we put in great inputs before we expect great outputs as well.
Yeah, so good. And that's something that I want to really land, because you have to sometimes be willing to give up short-term cash flow, because whatever you give up in short-term cash flow now, you make back in multiplication on enterprise value on the back end.
That's it.
But a lot of times when you're talking to online businesses and people that are, young, that are just listening, like, oh, I just want to get to $500,000 a month or $1 million a month. Why? One, but then two, have you focused on any bit of sellability for that asset, or are you just constantly building a nice, beautiful job for yourself?
Yes.
Right.
Very true. Yeah. And it comes back to what you were saying earlier about building from love versus fear. There's actually one in the middle, which is almost building from greed, which is like, actually, I'm building for just the accumulation of assets. And that actually is a kind of a fear as well, that there's not enough. And often people start off businesses, young founders will build businesses being like, I need to move out my parents' house. I need to just get to this level of income so that I can not go hungry, so my family can not go hungry. And that's very admirable, but you can't build for the long term with that mindset. There has to be a shift from, I'm not building for short-term cash flow. I've got 3 months of supplies in the bank. I often say to founders, keep 3 months, 4 months emergency in the bank so that you can take a little bit more of a longer term view of your business. Because now you're building for the long term, you're building for maybe going a few steps back for a season so that you can then rocket forward as well.
That's passive income. That's like a lot of this work into a lot of activity on the front end, but then the business actually being an asset creates passive income.
So true. So true.
Back to the travel real quick, because I wanted to highlight this one thing that was very unique. What you're probably the only person that'll ever do this I've ever seen. You flew to London to go walk your dog.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
So for me, I was about 12 years old, and I think I was 14 years old, and I was sitting at home, and I was actually in let me start again. Oh, I was 19. So I was 19 years old. I was in college doing an exam, and my mom calls me and says, hey, Sammy, our dog previously, he can't get up from the garden. He's lying down, and I can't get him up, and I need you to come help me. I was about 2 hours away from home. And so I was like, hey, I'll drop the exam. I'm going to go take a cab and go see mom. I go in, my mom's crying, and she says, oh, like, go see him. He's in the back. And he had developed pre-late stage prostate cancer, and just came out of nowhere. And because of how it had grown, it interfered with his leg muscles and he couldn't raise himself up. And so me being like a 19-year-old, I was like, okay, cool, let me go. And I lifted him up, brought him inside the house, big golden retriever dog, like beautiful. But it's during that time that my sister was actually in New Zealand on a work placement for a part of her medical degree. And it was actually her dog. She was the one who actually got it 10 years before that. It was like her baby. Mm-hmm. And so we had to make the hard decision that she would have to basically watch him over webcam for the next few days because she couldn't get home. Because he basically had to, pass away in the next 3 days. And I remember just the hurt, of course, that we felt, but I couldn't imagine the hurt that she felt of like her baby having to see it over Zoom and not being able to actually spend time with him. And so fast forward to now, we have a new dog, Bailey. He's beautiful. But he is 9 years old. Nothing's wrong with him. He's fantastic. But, with baby coming through in January, I'm not going to see him for a long time. We're going to be staying here in the US for a while. I'm going through my whole green card process as well. And it was through that sort of like period where I was thinking, you know what? I'm actually not going to see him for a while. I asked my wife, I was like, hey, I know you're about 32 weeks pregnant, but would you mind if I spent maybe 2-3 days with Bailey and just go in and spend some time with him? And it made me very emotional at that point. I was like, okay, cool. I would never want to just carry on my life and then suddenly I get a call with a 4-month-old in my arms saying, hey, we just had this diagnosis. And I never want to, talk about what could happen. But I'm from a point of view of the ROI of me being able to go to London for 3 days, see family in their own context, but also really spend some good time with Bailey and my dog. I was like, I'll take that ROI every single day. Zero business ROI, like zero money ROI. But one of the things I've really come to love is that not all ROI is financial. It really is experiential. It's just, food for the soul. And so I took him on a lovely walk. We see him run in the park. He's got some great life in him. And so, I think he's got a good 6 more years in him, which for sure. But it's one of those things where I have some gut feels about discernment of maybe I should go there. I tend to follow those things now because, more often than not, they're actually correct signals. And yeah, I just like being led by the Holy Spirit on those things. So it just felt such an easy flow. Luckily Victoria's family, my wife was in town, so they could look after her while I was away. But yeah, I'll do that all day, every day. I'll go see him.
Dude, not enough people are optimizing for return on happiness, return on peace, return on energy. It's always just, if I put this money in, how much money do I get out? That's money is just a tool to be able to get the rest of it.
That's it.
So good, man.
Absolutely.
Last topic here, your parents, their influence on you. I know, let's act as if your dad's not here right now.
Pretend.
Super educated, well-spoken, high-performing kingdom builders from what I've observed about your family. What do you have to say about them? Like how important have them been in shaping your life?
Yeah. And all the stuff I'll share now is stuff I've shared with my parents as well. So it's not like there's like a surprise that we're like, hey, excuse me, like, what do you think about this? My parents are phenomenal. I think just seeing their story of the challenges that they've gone through. And I was very grateful that they actually they shared with us some of the challenges they went through with finances, with the church leadership, and just a lot of personal things that came through in their world, health problems they went through, that they've always put God at the center. And they've always been so faith-focused and faith-based. For me, it's just been inspiring. I'm like, man, even through the loss that I experienced, they've been through some crazier times as well. And so I feel that's a whole nother podcast for them to share some things. But just in the way that they've put their family first, they've really honored God in terms of being able to kind of raise me and my sister to be, hopefully great individuals. I'm taking a lot of what they've done for us and passing it on to my kids as well. I think what's been cool is I think generationally there's been a shift though recently where I think I've been showing my parents of, hey, I think there's been a season where, and this I think comes from a mix of like the Indian tradition, but also Christianity, which is, hey, we always look out for others more than we do for ourselves. And I could sense that in many seasons, my mom and my dad would be looking out for their siblings, people in their world, more so than they were actually going ahead and making sure that their mental health, their physical health was good. Almost like a sacrificial kind of love where you feel like, okay, I don't need any help, but everyone else needs help, so I'm called to help others. And so I kind of observed that with them. I told them, hey guys, I feel like you're spending more time with other people than you are just on shooting your own lives, because you will be way more operating out of overflow if you can actually help yourselves first before you help others as well. So that for me, I think is a big shift that I think we're going to start to shift in. Well, they already shifted in their worlds, but I'm going to shift that into our worlds more. I think also just the idea of like being, I think, radically honest as well with family, even growing up. Like there were plenty of things that challenges that they went through when, you know, I was in my teens, maybe my early 20s, that I only found out about last year or the year before. And I told them kind of like a little bit angrily. I was like, guys, like I wish you told me earlier, because it would have helped me to really understand life as it happens. And I think we can often be in a place where, especially, you know, I grew up in a very Christian home, but also a very privileged home. My dad did extremely well in business. He is an extremely good businessman. My mom was an extremely good doctor. And so through that, I've seen both myself and also others who I know, you kind of think you're kind of in a bubble because everything is there for you, best education, best opportunities, best vacations. And suddenly you get to 21, 22 and you're like, oh, wow, this life is kind of hard. And I think being able to kind of getting prepped for life earlier on, I think that's something that I'm realizing actually that's actually so advantageous to do for kids as well. But I also see both sides. You know, my parents share with me, they're like, Raj, we want you to just keep focused on your studies in school and not have to worry about all this crazy stuff that was happening. So I see both sides of it for sure. But I think just my parents have always been steadfast believers, just excellently executing just what God has put in their heart for them. And they just have such a love for people as well, you know. And so I think that's almost like a good problem to have, where you love people too much. You need to kind of dial it down a bit and look after yourself first. But they have just been an amazing example for me to follow. Well,
they raised a gem of a son, man. And I appreciate you being in my life. I appreciate you raising such a good human. Thank you, man. Thank you for pouring into us. I appreciate you letting me pepper you with questions. This is, like Absolutely. I said, selfishly, this provides an opportunity for me to learn a lot more about you. 100%. So just really, really appreciate you diving in for our listeners. If you guys like this, follow Raj. Where can they connect with you?
Follow me on Instagram, Raj Dua _. And I'd love to connect that.
Some awesome content. That Ritz yacht was awesome, dude. Appreciate you, brother. Much love.
Cheers, guys.